Welcome to Smart Remarks, where our nation's drug policy remains one toke over the line. So there's a new book coming out later on this month, a biography of President Obama that's apparently going to make the claim that while in high school, he was quite the pothead. You know, this was the late 1970s in Hawaii, Maui Wowie dude and all that. Apparently Obama hung out with a group that called itself Choom Gang, Choom as in toke up. And among other things, Obama had a knack for interceptions. A marijuana cigarette would be going around, he'd elbow his way into the circle, shout, "Interception!" and bogart that joint. You know, all this is pretty funny. We forget how drug-saturated the culture of the late 1970s was. This was an era when Cheech and Chong were still putting out movies. I remember watching a show on Friday nights called Fridays. It didn't even start until 1980. It was completely saturated with drug humor. This was on network television. So Obama's high school experience was not atypical of the time. And however much dope he smoked, we can still say, well, look, he turned out to be an articulate, intelligent guy, a top scholar, and now President of the United States. This is your brain on drugs, indeed. But what's upsetting about all this is not that Obama was a pothead in high school, but the fact that he's turned into such an enthusiastic drug warrior now. Obama has simply continued the drug war. His administration wants to spend $26 billion on federal anti-drug programs in fiscal year 2013. At this time of fiscal retrenchment, when we got to cut government programs, this actually represents a 1.6% increase over 2012. It allocates slightly more for treatment and prevention, but the Department of Justice, the Bureau of Prisons, and the DEA would see huge increases, and so we see that the focus is still on more money and militarization for the police and putting more people in jail. The war on drugs has long been an expensive and unjust failure. You know, after 10 years in Afghanistan, Americans have gotten war-weary and they want to pull out. But we've been waging the war on drugs for 40 years now, spent more than $1 trillion, and we are no closer to victory, whatever that means, than we have ever been. We are never going to achieve victory, and everyone knows it. Obama knows it. But like all Democratic presidents, he's got to avoid looking wimpy. You know, were Obama to say that marijuana at least ought to be decriminalized, he'd be smeared as soft on the drugs that are killing our children. Outrage! And so he can't have that happen. You know, one would think his history would inoculate him to the hysteria that surrounds this issue, but apparently not. And so, instead of having a legitimate adult discussion about the war on drugs, we'll just keep doing the same thing and expecting different results. That's the definition of insanity, and our drug policy is insane. We do not have a sane drug policy in this country, and it's too bad. I myself, I don't favor the decriminalization of hard drugs like heroin or meth or even cocaine. But yeah, pot, a drug that half of Americans have tried, a drug that has definitive medical benefits and is actually less harmful than alcohol. Yeah, let's talk about that. Let's talk about decriminalizing it and controlling it in the way the sale of alcohol is controlled, and taxing it. Taxing it could generate tens, maybe even hundreds of billions of dollars for this country at a time when we desperately need it. Now, when every government program needs to be examined for its cost effectiveness, isn't it time to ask, has the war on drugs been worth it? Can we afford the war on drugs? How about it, Mr. President? Can we?